Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My sister's family wants to move in because I bought a huge house. After that, my dad asks to borrow my car and then sells it. And after that, I got fired from a job I don't work at. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, Karen gets bit by one mosquito. Oh, you've taken this too far, Reddit boy. So please hit that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister's family wants to move in because I bought a huge house. I, male 31, am single and child-free. For the past few years, I've been house hunting and during 2020 was offered to buy my great-grandmother's farmhouse. It's about an hour away, almost 80 years old, needs a lot of TLC and comes with about 15 acres. Originally, I declined, but my grandma offered it as a steal to keep it in the family. The price was worth the land alone, and I loved the idea of restoring it, so I said yes. The house has 6 bedrooms, which sounds like a lot, but they're actually very small. The plan is to turn 4 rooms into 2 rooms and a bath. 1 room kept as the master, and the 6th room is actually the dining area that will become part of the living area. The one great thing is the kitchen is huge, and it has an outdoor extension like a mud room. I've recently started construction on the rooms and have gotten some odd reactions from my family. My mother believes I should have kept the house as is, and when I pried, she admitted she thought I'd offer to house my sister's family. My sister, female 34, has 3 kids who are 11, 9, and 3, and a deadbeat ex-husband. They divorced after her 3-year-old was born, and my sister moved in with my mom. Our parents are divorced, so dad is not a part of this. My sister's husband moved back to his family state and only sees the kids a few times a year. The child support is not much because he has a low-paying job. My mom's house is a 3-bedroom. My nieces share a room while my nephew sleeps with his mom. My sister has a job and could rent her own apartment but wants to save up money instead. My cousin's son, male 15, has started staying as well and sleeps on the couch. His family life is not all that great right now. The house is cramped, but my mother refuses to ask her to leave. They have started making passive-aggressive comments about me being single and alone in such a huge house. When I asked my sister, she also admitted that she expected to at least be offered to live with me. I told her it's an hour away from her job and school. Why would she want to? She then said that she would make the drive to work and change the kids' schools. I told her I won't have the space, and now it has become a fight. My sister got my great-grandma involved, and now my grandma told me that I should let them live with me because the house is family property. Now, even my 15-year-old cousin is asking about staying with me. What would you do in this situation? Would you let them live with you or not? Please let us know. It would depend on if I liked them or not. My dad asks to borrow my car, then sells it. This was a long time ago. I hardly have any contact with that part of the family anymore, but I do still talk to my dad once in a while. My dad needed a car for a while, so I loaned him mine. When I went to get the car back, the back end was smashed in. My dad tells me how he was at a red light and the car was rear-ended. Of course, I asked the normal questions about fault and insurance and everything else. He tells me the other guy's insurance company sent him a check for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs. A lie, so he didn't have the car repaired. Instead, he spent the money. My dad and I have the same first and last name, but a different middle name, so it's easy to see how he could claim the car was his and have the check written to him. When I told my dad that he should have just let me know about the accident and let me handle the claim, he said, "Why should you get anything? You weren't in an accident, I was." We had an argument about this, but none of my dad's argument was even anywhere close to being valid. He also just wasn't hearing any of what I had to say. I asked my dad to leave the car at his house for a few days and said I would arrange to have it picked up and repaired. A couple of days later, I went to his house, but I didn't see the car, so I thought he wasn't home. When I knocked, he answered. My younger brother was also there, which was surprising because he was supposed to be away at college, which I was helping pay for, but that's another story. I told my dad I was there to pick up the car. He says that was impossible because he sold it. I asked him why he did that, and he says, "You seemed so upset about the damage. I figured you just want me to go ahead and sell it so you didn't have to deal with it anymore." I was making payments on the car and asked my dad how he could have sold it without the title. He told me he just had the guy fill out a lost title form or something like that. I don't even know the details on it. I told him that I thought that was going to be a problem when the guy tries to register the car and finds out that there's a lien on the car. My dad says, "That's the buyer's problem, not mine." When I asked him how much he got for it, he told me he got $3,000. Even with the damage, it was worth closer to $7,000, but definitely no less than $5,000. I asked my dad for the money. He told me he had already spent it. Then he goes into this rant about how many bills he has and how he's even paying for my brother's college. Not true. Plus, my brother was sitting right there. He had dropped out, but didn't even tell me, even though he kept cashing the checks that I sent. I had very little contact with my parents after that, and I think I only actually saw them one time since then, which was around the time I got married, but not at the wedding because they refused to go. None of this was all that surprising though. I never should have even loaned the car to my dad in the first place. I got fired from a job I don't work at. I work for Nabisco as a sales service representative. I go from store to store to whatever region I'm assigned to for that day. I spend usually between 2 and 6 hours in each store depending on the amount of product in the shipment. Today I was doing my normal Walmart service and something I never could have imagined happened. I'm required to wear pants and a collared shirt for my position. It's not really a big deal, except on the hot days when I leave the stores to enter my car that's a ripe 110 degrees. Today I was wearing khakis and a blue collared shirt, my first mistake. All the Walmart employees wear blue and a crossing guard bright yellow vest. I was doing my usual thing, throwing Oreos on shelves and making sure the Ritz are all straight, when a new Walmart employee came over to me. Employee: "Hey, there's a mandatory meeting for us in the receiving deck." Me: "Sorry, I don't actually work." Employee: "It's mandatory." Instead of putting up a fight about it, knowing I had to go to receiving to get more product, I went with the new dude. I got back there and walked by the group of employees gathered around the store manager, who I have had several conversations with before. I thought, no biggie, squeak on by and just get one box of Chips Ahoy and then leave. As I walk by the group, I hear a faint, "Excuse me?" I turn around to see a woman I have never seen before. I guess a woman from regional doing some sort of wellness and performance check. Me: "Can I help you?" Woman: "Actually, yes, you can help by joining us." Once again, not wanting to get into a confrontation, I just walked over there and decided to try and wait it out. The lady went on and on, but didn't seem to stop. I tried to sneak away, giving the store manager a little nod, kind of confirming that I was going to leave. I stood up, and the lady had more things to say. "Excuse me? Who gave you permission to leave?" Me: "I don't actually work here." "It's a rhetorical question. Sit down." I decided that I was just going to walk away. After all, I didn't actually work there. I walked over to our back stock and grabbed the cookies and left. After around 45 minutes of stocking shelves, I had to go back and grab more of the items from the back stock. I returned to the back room and proceeded to load the boat with more product. Lo and behold, regional lady approached me. "Extremely disrespectful to try and upstage me. What makes you think you can do something like that to a higher up?" Me trying to explain. "I tried to tell you, I don't work." No. You don't talk back to me. Pack it up and go." I was absolutely dumbfounded. It was so cliche, like bad movie cliche, but I was just going to do what was requested. I packed it up and left, leaving a half-loaded boat in the back room with me. Later, I got a call from my boss saying that Walmart called, complaining I didn't finish the case shipment. I explained the scenario and was off the hook. I like to think the manager will now have a half-stocked cookies and crackers aisle and have to personally stock it for not standing up for me. Entitled Aunt demands I give her son my birthday gift. As the title suggests, it was my birthday, my 8th birthday if I'm not mistaken. And like every year, after the party in our building salon, my parents would take me and my gifts up to our apartment so I could start opening them while they finished paying the DJ and whatnot. I was usually alone in that moment since they left me there and went back down, but for the first time, my father's sister, the entitled aunt, attended my birthday, and she needed to change my cousin who was around 1 year old at the time, so they left her there with me. She was tending to her baby, and I was minding my business. All was well, until I opened one gift that made me squeal in excitement. It was a remote-controlled robot dragon sword that walked, roared, and attacked if you passed too close to it. I had been asking my parents for that for months and was super happy to finally have it. I still have it to this day. Cue the she-devil peeking into my room. Wow, look at that. That's a really nice toy you got there. Me. Yeah, I've been wanting it forever. I can see why. Your cousin is getting a little bored. Let him play with it. He loves dinosaurs. Me, already hugging my dragon sword. No, he's gonna break it. Entitled Aunt. Stop being so selfish. He's just a baby, and he's bored. Me. Exactly, he's just a baby. He's not even old enough to play with this yet. I said, pointing at the box that said the minimal indicated age to play. I can't remember what it was, but it was certainly more than he had. At that, she huffed and stormed out of the apartment, and I thought it was the end of it. But soon, I hear my dad stomping in. Turns out she went down to complain to him about me not letting her precious little angel play with my toy, and he was upset about it. He yanked the toy from me and started shouting at me that I was an ungrateful brat, that if I was going to be so selfish, I didn't deserve any of these gifts, and lots of other things I honestly can't remember, because at the point, I was already hiding and crying inside my wardrobe. This went on for a good few minutes until Mama Bear, as always, stepped in to defend me. She heard the commotion from the hallway and came running to see what was going on. After hearing both me and Dad trying to shout our side of the story louder than the other, she ended picking up what happened and went off on him, shouting louder than everyone else that it was more than fair that I was first to play with my own gift, that this was my birthday, so it should be a special and happy day for me, and that she would not allow it to be ruined because of that jerk. Yes, she called his sister that to her face. Didn't care enough to think about her own son's needs that she didn't even bring him one of his toys. Appropriated to his age to distract himself. It was a heated argument, but in the end, she had the last word, and I didn't have to lend any toys to anyone. So I consider it a win, even if my dad spent the rest of the day in a bad mood and barely looked at my face. Am I the jerk for telling my dad and his stepson to buzz off? Me, 35 male, and my wife, Nat, 32 female, have recently had a kid. When I was young, my parents divorced. When I was around 13, my dad remarried to his current wife, Lizzie. Lizzie had a son, Maddie, who was about 3 at the time. Me and my mom have a really good relationship, but I probably won't bring her up much because this is mostly about my dad's family. I was living with my mom for the majority of the time before I got my own place, but I stayed at my dad's enough to have my own room. My dad started to ignore me for his new family pretty much immediately, including sometimes not making me dinner when I was staying at his place. Maddie can't do anything wrong in my dad's eyes. For example, when I introduced Nat to my dad's family when we were still dating about 5 years ago, Maddie's first move was to tell her that he was available when she eventually got bored of me. I was upset at him, but I didn't start a fight because I just wasn't in the mood. Nat just laughed it off and said she was into older guys. We left straight after. Another example, I didn't get my driver's license until I was 28 for personal reasons that I won't list here. Anyway, I needed someone to mind my car for a few days because I was doing something with friends for a few days. Mom wasn't available, so I asked my dad. I came back a few days later and my car wasn't there. I asked why, and my dad said Maddie crashed it, so they were paying someone to fix it. I freaked out, and my dad told me that this was a good thing for Maddie because this would make him a better driver when he got his license. When I didn't immediately agree with him, I was told to get the heck out. Anyway, me and Nat have a son now. A few days ago, my dad called me a jerk because I didn't ask Maddie to be my son's godfather. Neither of them were invited to my wedding or my son's christening. I told him he wasn't even invited to my wedding, so what was this crap about? He said he didn't care that he wasn't invited, but that Maddie was never anything but nice to me and I should apologize. He said Maddie was with him. I told him to put it on speaker. I told both of them to buzz off. Then I hung up. Am I the jerk? Entitled parents get kicked off the plane because the Wi-Fi isn't working. I work for a major airline in the US as a flight attendant, and this happened about 2 years ago. We were working a flight from Orange County to Denver, which is normally a less than 2-hour flight. Important for later. I was the one in the front of the aircraft greeting passengers as they came aboard. The very first people to come on the plane for this particular flight was a family. 2 teen kids, their father, and their mother in a foot cast. They sit in the second row, and the rest of the boarding goes totally normal. We even got the door shut an extra 5 minutes early, and we were all thinking about going down to the hotel bar at the end of a wonderfully uneventful day. As we pull away from the gate, I start making some of the normal announcements. You know, the ones that everyone actually pays attention to, when I say that the Wi-Fi isn't working. Honestly, it does suck when that happens, but there is literally nothing I can do about it. The mom then rings her flight attendant call button, and when I look over at her, I can see the frantic look in her eyes that makes me realize my peaceful day is coming to an abrupt end. I ask her what's going on, and she begins telling me how she can't possibly be on a flight without Wi-Fi, how she has nothing to watch, and how she just cannot handle being on this plane. I look at her dumbfounded. This is a woman in her at least early 40s, sitting next to her 2 kids and husband, who is freaking out about not having Wi-Fi for a 2-hour flight. But of course, I do not point out any of this. I instead put on my best customer service smile and apologize for the inconvenience. She then starts crying and saying that she has to get off the plane right now. I ask her if she is totally sure she wants to get off, because we're still on the ground and it's possible to go back, but it's a pain in the butt to return to the gate. As her sobs continue, I realize that at this point, even if she wanted to stay, there is no way that I would feel comfortable with her at 40,000 feet. So I have another crew member call the pilots and explain what's going on. I let her know that we are going back and that she and her family can deplane. This is the point where her wonderful husband decides to get involved, and you would think he would be consoling his wife, but he thought it a better idea to start yelling at me, screaming that she was going to be fine and we didn't need to go back, how I was the one being dramatic and wasting everyone's time. After a very awkward taxi back to the gate, I go back to the front so we can reopen the doors, and all the while the husband is alternating between yelling at me and yelling at his wife. Once we finally get the doors open, I head back to their row and ask them to deplane and offer to help them with their belongings. This is when the wife looks up at me and smiles, and this is the part that I will never forget. "I'm just going to run up there and download a movie and I'll be right back." I just smiled at her and thought, you have to be kidding me. We finally get them off the plane and into the slightly confused hands of a ground supervisor. We quickly reclose the doors and I exchange shocked glances with my crew. Who really thinks that they're going to get back onto a plane after you made them and 130 other passengers turn around because you couldn't spend 2 hours with your family without Wi-Fi? Am I the jerk for not letting this dude use the toilet and then getting him fired? I, female 21, know it sounds bad, but hear me out first. I was hired 3 months ago by a supermarket chain as a cleaner for their offices, situated in this massive building where hundreds of people work every day. Part of my job is cleaning toilets. When I clean a toilet, I leave a sign at the door saying the facility is currently being cleaned and asking for people to find another toilet during this time, as you can get into another set of toilets within a 2-minute walk no matter where you are. Most people respect this sign. Some may not read it. I understand that though. It's not flashy and it can go unnoticed. But as soon as they get in and see a cleaner there, they apologize and get out. Some very rare cases ask to use the toilet, but it is usually just one time. This dude was different though. One time he walked in. I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm just cleaning here." "No problem, you can finish it after." I was a bit shocked with the way he spoke to me, but I just walked out because I just didn't feel like dealing with the drama that could come from me saying no to that. Another time he got in and, after my, "Oh, sorry, I'm just cleaning," he said, "I'll be quick." I was going outside to grab my mop anyway, so I just went for it. The last time his reply was instead, "Hey, gotta pee, get out." I said, "I'm almost finished anyway, just 2 minutes." He told me to leave. I asked him to read the sign, please, while I finished. He said something like, "This is the men's toilets. You're the one staying here, so I'm going to feel free to use it no matter if you're here or not." What the heck? I walked out while hearing unzipping. I was lucky one of my supervisors was close by. I told her quickly what this dude was going to do while I was cleaning the toilet, and he was still inside. He gets out of the toilet almost immediately, completely relaxed. I point him out to my supervisor. She asks him if he has anything to say about what happened with me inside, and he tells her he wanted to use the bathroom and that I was gatekeeping it. He was honest about ordering me to leave and about telling me he was going to start even if I was in there. He just thought he was okay because I was in the wrong. Anyway, he ended up being fired. It was so weird to see him being so honest. Luckily for me, my work believes that I deserve to tell people not to use the bathroom while I'm cleaning them, no matter their gender. I'm feeling a bit bad about this. I got someone fired when I could have just let him use the bathroom. On the other hand, the dude was definitely disrespectful of me and my work. If there are any questions about anything, let me know. The situation just escalated very quickly and has left me startled with guilt. Edit. I wasn't expecting this whole thing. Just thank you everyone for your judgments. I hope you all are having a nice day. Am I the jerk for consistently correcting my mom when she mispronounces my daughter's name? A little bit of background. I'm named after my mother, just like she's named after hers. And also, just like my mom and hers, she and I do not have a good relationship. Pretty much never have as far back as I can remember. So when I got pregnant with a girl, I very deliberately gave her a different name. The context of the name is also key because it's a book character whose epitaph is curse breaker, as in I will do anything to break the curse of bad mother-daughter relationships in my line. My mom doesn't know that part, but my dad does, and he supported my decision. My mom got really hurt when I told everyone what my daughter's name would be. So my daughter was born almost 4 years ago, and I think my mom has pronounced her name correctly less than a handful of times. An example of using wrong names is my daughter's name is Sierra, but my mom says Sarah every single time. It's not even like my daughter's name is difficult to say. It's literally 2 syllables, and there's not weird letters that we don't use in English or anything like that. At the beginning, I nicely tried to walk her through the pronunciation, and she could say the syllables correctly. And then she could say the name correctly, until the next time. When I started getting upset about it, her excuse was, "You know me, I just don't pronounce words right," in an aw shucks kind of way. But like, my nephew, one of her grandsons, is named after a Norse god, and she has no trouble pronouncing his name. So what is it about my daughters that's so difficult? Things came to a head a couple months ago when we got into an argument about it, and she said, "This wouldn't even be a problem if you had named her our name." There it was. I'd had my suspicions, but now it was confirmed. My mom is so petty that she purposefully mispronounces her own granddaughter's name because I didn't use ours. Here's where I may be the jerk. Now, every time she says my daughter's name as Sarah, I immediately say, "Who's Sarah?" with a straight face, and won't move on until she says the name correctly. She scoffs or gets mad, but I don't care. It's been 4 years. Not to mention how just insanely disrespectful it is to mispronounce anyone's name, let alone your own family. So, am I the jerk for choosing the pronunciation of my daughter's name as my hill to die on? Edit. A lot of people are asking me why I'm letting my mom around my daughter, which is a completely reasonable question. My ex, daughter's father, and I broke up in January, and prior to that, I had been a stay-at-home mom for 3 years and had literally no money. We were never married, so no alimony, and child support can take up to 18 months when the parents live in different states. So in order to avoid homelessness, my daughter and I had to move back home to live with my parents. That's the other thing I think people are missing. Yes, I have this crappy mom that we have to live with, but I also have a dad who's a nice person and a good grandfather. Specifically regarding this issue, he has spoken up to my mom about it and even employed the "Who's Sarah" tactic, but my mom just plain doesn't care. In general, I try to avoid her as much as possible to keep the peace, but sometimes there's no getting out of it. Luckily, it's a temporary arrangement, and I've told my mom to her face that as soon as we move out, she'll likely never see her granddaughter again, for many other reasons on top of this one. Am I the jerk for using some of my stepson's camp savings to buy replacement sneakers for my son? My son, Chris' 16th birthday was weeks ago. His mom, my ex-wife, couldn't be with him due to work, but sent him a pair of Adidas sneakers as a birthday gift. Chris is a runner, and he enjoys running every day as a way to relieve stress and anxiety. My stepson, Jake, who's 17, saw the sneakers and said they looked like the ones his favorite artist, Kane Brown, was wearing in Famous Friends music video, and so he got hung up on them. Always asking Chris to see them and try them on. Chris let him see them, but not wear them because Jake has bigger feet and he was worried he might ruin them. Jake wanted to wear the sneakers in front of his friends, but Chris didn't let him leave the house with them. Jake ended up sneaking out with them a couple of times, which made Chris hide them from him since he kept taking them without permission. Jake was no longer able to sneak out wearing the sneakers and begged Chris to let him wear them out one last time to a party his friends had. Chris said no, and Jake somehow was able to locate the sneakers, but instead of going out with him, he then cut them with a handpreneur and kept them in his room while Chris and I looked for them until his mom found them. Chris saw the damage and was upset. I grounded Jake and promised Chris to get a replacement, but when his mom called to tell me those sneakers are worth $600 and had to be replaced, I was in utter shock. I saw the receipt, and even then I couldn't believe it, because $600 is way more than I can afford. Chris' mom is a cardiologist, and she can afford this stuff, but I obviously can't. I was fuming. I let Jake know how much he messed up and told him I will be replacing the sneakers using the money he saved for his week-long summer camp. Jake had a meltdown and said he was already punished and it wasn't fair to punish him further. My wife thought I exaggerated and talked about how important summer camp is for Jake, as he's been waiting for it for months. I let her know that Chris' mom is rightfully upset her gift for him was ruined, and because Jake acted out of spite and maliciousness, then it's only fair he'd pay for a replacement. My wife assured me if Jake knew those sneakers were that expensive, he would never have touched them, but thought Chris was letting him borrow them on purpose. What's done is done, and I made my decision final. Both my wife and Jake are giving me the silent treatment and refusing to talk about it. My wife thinks it's crazy to spend $600 on new sneakers. I agree, but those aren't mine, so needed replacement. So, am I the jerk? ETA, that because Chris' mom sends somewhat expensive items to Chris, Jake would sometimes feel jealous, which is understandable. I make sure to treat both boys equally by getting them equal stuff. My wife thinks that Chris should be sharing with his brother, and he does, but there are things that just cannot be shared. Couldn't read at work, but was allowed to write because it looked like I was doing something. When I was 19, I was a machine mechanic. I fixed automatic presses in a factory. My main job was to keep 2 and sometimes 4 machines running just as much as possible. When they were all running, I actually had very little to do. I could basically sit there and listen to the machines until one of them started acting up. I started bringing books to read to pass the 10 and 12-hour days. One day, the vice president of the company walks by and asks what I'm doing. I point at the 4 running machines and tell him that they are all running. He says I can't sit at my workbench and read. I should be doing something. I tell him that the machines are running, and until one breaks, there really isn't anything else to do. I already organized my tools and cleaned my work area. I just have to wait until something breaks. He says no reading. I was still bored, so I decided to write a story. I figured I could tell a story just as good as the next guy. I started writing instead of reading. Writing at my workbench apparently looked like some kind of work and was just fine. A year later, the company decides to move. The job would no longer be union, so I had the choice to move with the company without the union or go to college for retraining of some sort. I chose the retraining and took creative writing classes. Long story short, I now have a master's degree in English with creative writing focus. I've published several books, and I teach composition at a university for a crap load more money, and usually for half a day, summers off. The vice president called me several times over the first 2 years to see if I would come back to work as a machine mechanic. I never even answered the phone when he called. I just let the answering machine get it every time. If he would have just let me read the crappy fiction I brought to work, I probably never would have thought about writing at all. I never would have gone to college, and I'd still be there waiting for the machines to break down. Officer, he won't refund me cash for my gas. From my gas station days in 2013. About a year into working there, my station joined and several others to switch over to prepay only pumps. I personally would see drive-offs a few times every time I worked, so I was happy to see the change. Customers, however, resisted the change as much as they could, from threatening to not get gas here anymore to get me to turn on the pump for them because our system still allowed it for truck drivers that use special cards to pay. One day, a lady I had never seen before, our Karen, pulls up to the pump and grabs the nozzle, expecting me to turn on the pump for her. I announce over the speakers the same speech I've been giving everyone that won't read the prepay signs on the pumps and continue to wait on the other customers in my line. She ignores me at first, but hangs up the nozzle after a minute and makes her way into the store. I finish the customer between her and me, and she starts in at me about not letting her get gas outside. I politely tell her that we're a prepay only store now, and she'll have to put money into a pump before getting her gas. She seems confused at first, but we get through the transaction with her putting in $30 unleaded onto a debit card, and she heads out to pump her fuel. She doesn't put the whole $30 into her vehicle and heads back in to speak to me. After I get the customers in between me and her, she wants the cash for the fuel she didn't use. Now, it's my bad for forgetting to tell her gas prepays on any card are automatically refunded once the nozzle is hung back onto the pump. I tell her this, and I have no way to give her cash back from the transaction. Mentioning it may take a day for the refund to appear on her bank statement. She gets mad, demanding I give her cash for the fuel. I repeat myself, apologizing for the misunderstanding, and say she still has the money, it's just on her card. She leaves the store, and I think I'm done with her. Nope. I continue on my work in between, helping customers in the store for several minutes, and I look outside. A cop has pulled up to Karen's car, and she's talking to him, occasionally pointing at the store, and I already see the headache coming. I tell my coworker to run register as the cop comes in, and he asks to speak to me. I greet him and ask what he needs. He informs me that Karen called the cops saying we were refusing to give her money back for the fuel while being really rude to her. I tell him what happened, how refunds for gas work, and if he wishes, he can come back with me to the cameras to watch the footage. He says that's okay, and he'll inform her of what actually happened. I don't see them talk as a rush hits the store then, but one of my regulars told me that the lady had flipped me off after she got into her car, so the cop wouldn't see her do it. Click this button to join as a member, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. And come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen did in that one.